right, call the meeting to order. And any adjustments to the agenda, or are we good to approve as written?
I'm good.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right, so we have 2 appointments this evening.
So did you hear that beep? Just ignore it. It's going to go off every once in a while. It's because our phone lines are down to the building. So that is our alarm going off. We're aware of it. We've had consolidated here. They need to come back, but you can silence it, but it's still going to go off periodically. So.
Who is it, Consolidated? Mm-hmm. Oh, good luck with that.
Well, he came and
Maybe beeping for a few months
and
down
checked
there.
it out, and then they forgot to give him the keys to the building, so he needs to come back, and it sounds like it's kind of a mess.
Kind of like it's amazing, like,
yeah.
well, it's like,
But Kelly silenced it, right? I silenced it when I came over, but I'm not sure how long it lasts. Maybe 12 hours. I don't know.
alrighty.
Okay.
So first appointment, Pam Brown, talk about dog licenses. So,
March election procedures, it says. Paint.
do whatever you want to do, as long as we can hear you. Sometimes it can be
Julie needs you to speak
challenging,
up.
but.
Julie needs you to speak up?
Yep.
I can do that. So I am requesting a $2 increase in the dog licenses, as the state has passed this lovely thing in legislature last year that they are taking $2 more from each dog license for them. So right now, we sent $5 to the state as it is right now, so now it's increasing to $7, which would leave me, if we did it as is kept it, a dog that was fixed left us $2 per license, and one that is not fixed gives us $6 per license. So I'm just asking, and the licenses have not increased in the 8 years that I have been here. And Jean said it had been a number of years before. They had done it before that.
So you do all the work. The town clerks do all the work with the dog licenses. You upload everything to the state. What do they need $2 more for? Did they tell you?
Offset all the other stuff.
They created a
Oh boy.
position.
Oh good.
That's a surprise.
Yeah, I agree.
They created a position of a person who is overseeing spay, neuter, and registrations and stuff of that sort, and it's being funded by this $2 per license increase and some other funds that the state, in the legislature and the state, when they passed all this stuff.
Yeah.
But yes, so I'm literally asking for it to go from $9 to $11, and then the late fee would go from 11 to 13, and then if it's an intact dog, it would go from 13 to 15 and from 17 to 19. And I know that this is one of those things, and I know some people have issues with licensing their dogs and things of that sort, but it is state statute, and no, I'm not doing cats.
Oh, come on.
I'm sorry.
No.
If we could license cats, we'd be,
There is no way.
We'd be-
Discrimination.
Cats would be in heaven.
We'd be out of debt
we'd
so
be fixed,
fast.
It would be good for life.
Yeah.
But I'm just asking for a $2 increase, and it would start effective January 1st, because that's when my fees go to the state, effective January 1st.
So in the paperwork that we received, it said that it was going from $5 to $8, but it's really $7?
It's 7. Yeah,
Okay.
it's 7, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Because the note I had written is why not go for 3 if it's,
Well, I would.
pass it along. I mean, people vote these people in, so.
It basically covers, it's gonna try and cover the tags and the paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, my time is just that, I don't care about that part, but I mean, it's just, and to offset where we might have some revenue out of this.
And you have to do a mailing too, right? Once dogs are not registered, don't you have to
Correct.
mail a
I
postcard?
Everybody who has not registered their dogs and things of that sort, so yes. Yeah, it covers.
$2 is a deal, because if you've ever sold a dog license, it takes a minute. Plus she has to enter them in the computer, and there's a whole,
Everything.
it's a deal.
It's
It's a deal.
I mean, it's a deal, but when you're constantly being $2 behind the scenes, not you, like, but I'm just saying the state in general, like
I know.
registration your car or anything now, it's way more expensive than it used to be. And, you know, we forget about all that. So, did anybody have any objection to the $2 increase, or?
Yes, but the guy that I'm objecting to isn't here.
There you go.
So-
Move to approve with caveat that I don't believe that the state is treating the state people correctly. And you can put that in the record too, I don't care.
But they're not cheating the state people or the?
Yeah, us.
Okay.
Add more taxation.
Okay.
Taxpayer.
Taxpayer. Okay, we'll make a note.
Okay, do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Cats, go cats, go cats.
And March election procedures?
March election procedures. As we all know, this will be our second year of anyone who's running for an elected position such as moderator, town clerk, town treasurer, select board, trustee of public funds. They are done by Australian ballot. And in order for that to happen, the consent for candidate form and signatures petition would need to be to me by 5 p.m. on Monday, January 27th. And in order to get the signatures, it's either 1% or 30 signatures, whichever is less. And I can tell you the 1% is less. You need about 17 signatures. My suggestion would be, though, is to get about 25. Because if I can't read a printed name, the signature name I know I'll never make out for some people. But if I cannot read a printed name, I cannot count it. And they have to be registered Bethel voters.
That's the key.
That's
People
the key.
forget. They think
Yes.
that because they're a resident of Bethel, they're automatically a voter, and they're not. So sometimes Pam has
They
to
have
cut
to be
people.
registered voters.
Take
So,
them off the list.
you can, if anybody is thinking of this at all, come see me. I actually have to get mine together if I'm thinking of running, so, you know. But it's one of
That's
those
right.
things, yeah. So, but yes, that is getting that information out there. Yeah, I have all the forms. Elvie, did you get yours the other day? Yes.
And Pam, I know this isn't the school's meeting, but if anybody's interested in the school positions, it's a little different. So could you just talk them through
The
that?
school position, Carmen Bascom, the Royalton clerk, is actually the board clerk. But we do kind of work together on things. But yes, you would need a consent for candidate form and the petition piece of it. But it would be 1% of the combined checklist for school. And
Both
that
towns. Yeah.
is, we have about 1,500 registered voters. They have about 2,600. So you're looking at 40.
40, yeah.
40, you know, 40, something like that, or whatever. I could get the numbers for you, no problem and stuff of that sort, but yes. And that would need to be to Carmen in South Royalton by 5 o'clock on the 27th.
What else are you going to be voting on? So you have Australian ballot for officers for the town and for the
town.
school.
For the
Are you
school.
looking at any other election happening?
Not that I'm aware of right now, but a possibility. I think the school might come back with their bond vote again, being on that day as well. They were supposed to have a meeting tonight or something sort of like that part, and I believe it got canceled. But yeah, so that might also be coming up. So there could be the town of Bethel, which would be one ballot, the school directors, and maybe the bond could be on the same one for the White River Super, for that one there. Or we can have 3 different ballots. It would all depend. But I'm just hoping that they can get everything together so it's only on 2 ballots. Town of Bethel, White River Unified District. For the school directors, I believe there's one for Bethel and one for Royalton up this year, 3-year terms. And then the possible bond vote. But yeah. That's all that I know is in the pipeline right now. But
Voting at the school?
voting would be at the school, in the elementary lobby at our school over here, all day from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. So with it being Australian ballot, you can request the absentee ballots and I will mail them to you. They will not be mass mailed out. This is not a mass mail, this is not the state. Well, no. You call and request a ballot, I will verify your address, verify you're on the checklist, and out it goes. So, yes.
All right.
What?
That's the way it should be.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir.
All right.
Any questions for me?
Nope. That's all.
Going
Thanks,
home?
Pam.
Drive, there you go, drive safe. See you in the morning.
Eric, are you just representing yourself? Is there anybody else coming for you, or no?
I don't think so.
Okay, so you're good with starting a few minutes earlier then?
Pardon me?
You're good with starting a few minutes earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
No backup, nobody's coming to save you.
It's too snowy, they're at home.
I'm actually probably not the one that should be here. Paul should be because he's appointed by the select board. But they called me to come. Maybe I live a little closer, I don't know. I've never measured it, but Middle Park, North Main Street.
2 feet.
But we're asking that the town appropriate us $10,000 again for the senior center. We're still providing around 14,500 meals to the Bethel, South and Sharon, Stratford areas, Meals on Wheels. We have curbside pickup meals and we have congregate meals, but we only have congregate meals, which is in-person meals, once a week. They used to do it two times a week. And when COVID hit, obviously that took the rug out from under everybody wanting to get together. And we tried several things to get people back together. One of the things that happens when people eat together is they seem to donate more. When you deliver meals and you don't put a face with the person, I mean, you do, but our donations for the Meals on Wheels and the congregate meals are a lot less than when we have, or not congregate, but the curbside are a lot less than when people get together. So, you know, we're spending about $9 and change on making a meal and delivering it. And our probably average donation for Meals on Wheels in July of 23 was 69 cents. We asked for a donation of $5 per meal to help us cover the cost. CVCOA reimburses us so much per meal, but you know, it's not a requirement that people pay the money.
Right.
It's a service, and that's pretty much what we like to provide as a service where people that need a good, healthy, nutritious meal can get one and not worry about it if they can't afford to pay. If they can afford to pay, we gladly accept donations, but you know, there are a lot of people out there that are struggling and they can't afford to pay, and it's a boost for them to get those meals. So our Meals on Wheels drivers only get reimbursed for mileage and not paid employees. The only paid employees are our director and our cook. The cook is just a little bit above minimum wage. And then our director, she manages two places, Stratford and Bethel, so we're bare bones. So, like I said at the town meeting last year, we need the money, and that's why we're asking for it again.
And I think, Eric, why you were asked is to come this year was, so the board's still trying to decide what we're going to do with some of our human services pieces, and what we say by that is not like discontinuing services. It means we've had such an uptick in donation requests that it used to be very simple, like, you know, every year we used to have a budget for the whole town of like $24,000 that, you know, included all these services, right? Just, you know, stagecoach, you know, Tri-Valley, you know, transit, all these pieces. And then last year, it more than doubled in 1 year. So what we were trying to do is try to separate out now the larger ask identities, which, you know, yours was one of 4 that are at the larger end of the ask now. Because we don't really, at this point, we haven't figured out with the select board what we're gonna do. You know, are we gonna vote some things from the floor if they're at a certain level, you know? If they cross a certain threshold, will we make them vote that at the floor? Or, you know, are we going to retweak our human services piece to, you know, maybe the budget is 50,000 instead of 24,000 going forward, you know, or something so that they can then, you know, have a better guidance on what to do with the donations when they come in, because
That's what I hope you do.
yeah, so it used to always be, we'll call it easy, right? I mean, it's always challenging because we never have enough volunteers to want to be a part of the process, but usually it's, you know, seeking out donation request letters, and when they come in, then Paul and his committee will go through those. And the first thing they look is, you know, how is this identity servicing Bethel? How many people, and what is their ask, and how much is it changing year over year, and how does that look in our overall budget? So for years, it literally was, okay, this one's going up $200 this year. You know, I mean, it was very small increases, if any. And then all of a sudden last year, you know, we had, you know, if we just totaled the 3 largest ones was like 46,000.
63.6, yeah.
The last, oh, maybe if you had 4.
3 big ones.
So, I mean, just
7 and 7.
shot through. So what we did last year is we voted, you know, the food bank was the first time, so we ended up, or the food shelf, so we ended up putting that on the warning by itself. Some of them we honored requests, and some other ones, any of the difference that they added, then we added that to
Which
the
is
warrant.
what you did to Eric
Yeah,
last
so
year.
like if you normally got 6 and you asked for 10, then the other 4 went to the, so it's kind of a new period for us. Like we're trying, you know, it's challenging because it's, you know, there is a larger, there's a larger need for these services, but at the same time, our taxes are going up by a substantial amount, and it's a difficult balance of, because, you know, the higher the taxes go up, the more the need, right? I mean, it's kind of a circle. So we're trying to figure out how we approach that for this year. So what we've been asking is, the larger ask is to come in person so that we can kind of be upfront with you that we're really not sure yet if we're gonna put you in the way, you know, in the budget, or if we're going to put you as a separate line item to be voted on. So that's definitely continuing one of the discussions that we have.
The asks this year is $99,965.
Eric,
Everybody's asking $99,965. And we used to get by with 24.
it's crazy. Eric, could you tell them what you mentioned in the office the other day about Cook and or did you say you're the only one in the region?
We're one of the only regions that actually offer the home-cooked meals. Most of the meals now, like in Chittenden County and some of the bigger counties, Rutland County, they're frozen meals. And the quality of those meals have gone down a lot, and noticeably by the people that receive them. Many phone calls to the director about what's happened to the food quality. I think they have places where they make them en masse and freeze them up, and you'll get a warm meal on the day of the delivery, but the rest are frozen. So, and the quality has gone down. We try to give a good quality meal. I think that we're lucky that we're donated to by Panera donates quite a bit. Willing Hands donates quite a bit, 4,300 pounds of fresh produce and eggs. But we provide a good home-cooked meal. And sometimes you do get an extra meal that is frozen. But when you microwave it, it's a good meal.
It was home cooked originally, right? I think that's important that the select board knows that. You mentioned it the other day in office, so I just wanted you to be able to say that again publicly.
And then,
Yeah, you know, I'm not opposed to going to town meeting again. If I was you, I'd say that's a good way to get more townspeople there, whether they're for or against it. But
Right.
you get some democracy in action. But
How's
if it was in,
how's your response to the other towns? You're asking everybody for more money, right?
pardon me?
You're asking everyone for more money, so how's your response been?
Do you get appropriations from other towns besides Bethel?
All,
Yeah, so that's what I think he's
My
meaning.
ask is, how are they responding?
pardon me?
How are they responding?
Good question. The letters have just gone out, so it's the same process as here.
Yeah.
so,
I would say that South Royalton will be positive. I will say that Sharon probably will not be. They had a unique situation last year where they gave us a one-time $5,000, but then they found another program that had extra money in it, so they gave us another $5,000, and Stratford will give us the $10,000. I hope somebody from Stratford.
Please, he says.
South Royalton is a funny thing because, and I don't know if funny is the right word, but we paid South Royalton rent for the
Oh, I didn't know
building
that.
down there. You know, to have the congregant meals, to have our office there, but that's part of business, I guess.
Yep.
So we realized some money from them, but they realized some from us. And I've always kind of had a problem with that. I've only been on the board for 4 years, but, you know, we're gonna give you 10,000, but we need 8,000 back in rent. And I was hoping that somebody from South Royalton would go to the either the select board or the town meeting or the townspeople and say, this is something else that we can do for the seniors. Then it gets passed on to the other 3 towns with less money that we have to ask for. But the way our budgets are going, the way food costs are going, you know, our director spends a lot of time figuring this out, what we need. And I mean, we have an investment, but they're pulling from that investment,
Yep.
It's not looking so good anymore.
do you have, and these were some, I don't know if you have these numbers or not with you, and I'm not asking for, you know, a specific number, but, so just kind of reading through the literature that there was 14,500 meals that were made and delivered. And so I'm trying to like put this in my head, out of the 4 towns, you know, what piece of the pie is Bethel. And then I noticed in the financials that, and I'm assuming town income means that's the appropriation money that you guys collect from the towns?
Correct.
And so the town income is 16,500, and if we gave 10, so the other 3 communities only gave
It comes in
6,500.
increments, so it doesn't show up all at once on one spreadsheet.
Oh, okay. Because then I was thinking, well, what is the weighted piece of it? Well, yeah. Well, I don't know. Well, the thing is, it's always tricky because some of the data will say meals, right? And then some of the data will say we serve so many people, but then it's like, well, how many meals per person? You know what I mean? Like trying to figure that thing out.
Yeah, they do track how many Meals on Wheels go out, you know, it's.
Yeah, there's some numbers in here about it, saying that served a total of 14,464 meals in 23-24. 94 senior centers served 94 people from Bethel with Meals on Wheels and in-house meals, not counting number of residents been helped by the case manager with other issues.
And that's probably up over 100 now.
Yep.
And I believe they somehow said that was for the year.
Yeah.
It's not for the year, it's for, there's 100 meals a month that go out, so.
Okay.
You know, we have, for the Royalton, Sharon, South Royalton area, probably 500 to 600 that go out per month,
Wow.
just in the Meals on Wheels. Curbside became a big thing during COVID and after COVID, and over 100 per month from curbside. The congregate meals right around them. No, 35. Just people, it's hard to get people back,
Yeah,
so.
that's true.
So I think at this point, I mean, you guys haven't finished your human services
We
piece of
meet
it.
on Wednesday.
Yeah. So I think we'll probably have some discussions at the board level after the human services completes their collection.
On Monday.
Yeah, because I need to start drafting the warning.
And then we'll have to make a decision on, you know, are we going to put those items separately, or are we going to include it in the full budget? Now, one thing that we have been telling the 4 identities is that we are going to assure you that you don't have to, at the last minute, run around with a petition to say,
Like I did last year.
Right,
run around with a
exactly.
petition. So, so it'll likely it'll be in here, well, I guess it could be 3 ways. Either the full amount could be in the budget, or a piece of it could be in the budget where an add addition could be asked for or the whole thing could be asked on the floor. So, but we'll make sure that you don't have to run around with a petition that way, at least. So, and that's the challenge that we have this year. And I mean, as we all know, I mean, the cost of everything is more expensive right now, and at the same time, the need is more, and we're just trying to figure out how do we best balance, you know, tax bills with, you know, with everything else, and you know, school, and you know, there's all these different moving pieces that we're trying to, you know, how can we best afford to live, right? And you know, so I mean, we'll talk about it tonight, but just the White River Valley ambulance now over the last 3 years has gone up 30%. So, and you know, they told us 2 years ago this was just a one-time hike, and last year it went up again, and now this year we just got another shocker. So, I mean, and then you just look at that, at everything. Everything is, you know, healthcare. I mean, everything is just
Wages.
really, yeah,
Yeah.
everything's ballooning, and it's just
Yeah.
like, you know, it's hard for us to keep up. I mean, we can make the easy button, which is just collect it all, and here's the bill, and good luck. But we're trying to do our due diligence of what do we think people can afford, and what do we need to vote on separately so that people have more ownership when they get their tax bill to say, okay, well, I really voted all this stuff in, so.
Yeah, I think people, no one's saying that people aren't deserving. That doesn't,
No.
everybody doesn't, it's just figuring out how we can,
Yeah,
you know, responsibility lies with the residents. How can we know, we have a high population, as you know,
Well,
that, you know,
sometimes
fixed
no is
income.
a hard word to hear, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's necessary. But
Yeah.
what I will say too, that the senior center, if people are getting together, it's an important part of an older person's life to have some socialization.
Sure.
And they get that also with Meals on Wheels when those drivers come around to the house. They're not just knocking and leaving it on the door handle, they're waiting for somebody to answer the door, and they interact with the person that's opening the door. And that's big. My father-in-law's a recipient of Meals on Wheels, and he'll sit in that rocking chair until the knock on the door comes so that he can have a conversation with whoever's delivering that meal. It might be short, but it's important to him. And, it's important to a lot of people to see that car come up the driveway. So, you know, it's serving a lot of purposes. So,
right.
That's true.
if I was on the board, I would vote for it. But
Of course you
You
would.
have your candidacy paperwork in by the
That's right,
27th of
that's
January.
right. There you
I
go.
go see Pam.
All right,
Well, thank you, Eric, for coming out, and,
yeah.
you know, we will assure you that you're on the warning somewhere. If it's not in the budget, it's on the warning, or, yeah,
thank you.
so. All right.
Okay.
Public comment, so if there's anything on the agenda or
It's not.
anything that's not on the agenda, is usually how we do it. Now, if you haven't been here before, I mean, a lot of public identities do public comment which is literally just public comment, and that's the end of it. Nobody answers any questions, and they go home. But we like to interact. But we also are one of the few boards that allow interaction throughout the agenda items. So a lot of times, that's why I say if it's not on the agenda, because often if it is in the agenda, we'll give you, I mean, if there's a turnout of 100 people, then that could be different. But usually there's only half a dozen people, so we allow people to be a part of the conversation. So.
I just wanted to come tonight. We've submitted a request and we've been negotiating.
Yep.
One of my management team members, Elizabeth Levy, knows the numbers, does our shopping, and but we're just here to answer any questions that you might have.
So as I said on the budget, I think when I sent out the budget at the time, I think maybe I said, I can't remember now, but we've been through so many iterations, but I had gone back to the food shelf and asked them if they would graciously take $3,000 less, as we're trying to find money, and they said yes. So I forwarded you their email, all the stuff that Cindy sent me with all their information. So you're currently still in the boat as everybody else. Either you're currently in the same boat as everybody else, whether you're going to be a warning item or in the budget, I don't know. But I do appreciate you reconsidering, and it just was a lot. And then, like I said, I got Warva's and was like, I'm going to be $13,000 short for their ask in this budget, which means now I got to go through the budget I'm in and try to find 13,000, because we only see their first 6 months, and then we multiply the next 6 months by a percentage, and not close. And so I had to make up this year, and then next year, in the budget, I took their actual 6 months and then multiplied the last 6 months by 10.2%. I've never multiplied theirs that high, but that's their 3-year average. So when I saw that, I'm like, all right, I got to start getting money back or trying to find money. So I really appreciate you, considering that. So.
Try to work together.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I saw it. I was like, oh, God.
And I also say senior center is doing wonderful work. It's different than the work that we're doing, but it's the goals that is.
And the other thing is that the senior center and the food shelf have started conversations to try to work together to, bring hopefully costs down in some way, shape, or form.
Oh, nice. That's a good idea.
Opportunities every now and then.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah,
The chicken.
we're not competing with each other.
That's right.
That was great.
And actually, based on what you just had to say, I have a lot of ideas for additional ways that we could
This is the
collaborate
library.
to save costs and also hopefully eliminate some.
Oh, yeah.
waste.
Oh, jeez.
There is a gal from CVCOA that she's just wonderful. I mean, and she's on her soapbox and she's gonna do some. Not the.
I would have to, it's a good question to ask. I think you should ask for that.
It's her mission. So.
So we're just here to answer.
I think Paul had a question.
I'm looking at this pie chart that shows reserves. It's part of the financial summary. So I'm looking at the net reserves place at the bottom. Well, it's just a quick question. Does net reserves mean money in the bank?
Net reserves means money in the bank.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to go through that calculation and come up with that number. So you actually were able to grow it?
We were able to grow the money in the bank, but that's as our expenses grew as well.
Yeah.
Our expenses are outpacing our reserves. So even though both numbers are growing, but the differential between the two is shrinking.
Okay, thank you.
One question that I had, I don't remember seeing before, but I happened to see it on this handout, was it talked a little bit briefly about Royalton and Randolph, 34 families in those communities, but in the past, I don't think they were part of the conversation, or they weren't part of the area, we'll call it that. So is that something new? And if so, do they contribute anything, or are you going to be asking for them to start contributing on their piece? Or?
We don't serve those communities. The service area is a 4-town service area. And we do ask those towns to contribute. We do have folks that live right on the boundary lines, or they associate with that. What we don't do is we don't turn people away. But if they come from another town, we started to implement a policy of getting their contact information so that we can send them the information about the services in their community. And that seems to show that
So did the other towns contribute 30,000 apiece, your other 4 towns?
Well, Stockbridge is basically the only other one that contributes a significant amount.
It's generally based on usage.
Usage, oh, okay.
So Bethel, which is why we have that pie chart about it.
Yep.
Stockbridge.
Oh, 30 from, okay.
20 from here and the rest of it.
2 from Barnard, 5, okay. 500
2
from
from
Pittsfield.
Barnard and
500 from Pittsfield, okay.
Pittsfield, and we're working with Pittsfield to do outreach. We found that a couple of Pittsfield families, after all the work they do on Project Happy Holidays, we weren't serving them with their families. We were trying to determine whether Pittsfield even belonged in our service area. But we did some community organizing over there, and we have contacted families, and they're beginning to come to the food shelf, even though we've offered to bring the food, to the general store over there for pickup. But
All right.
And it just blows my mind looking at the pie chart that grants, or, only make up less than, 9% of the
Yeah.
revenue. And you would think that there would be more money associated with that from a state or a federal level, for instance, the school right now, having been on the board there, the school, now is 100%, but before, it wasn't 9%. It was always a large, it was 80% of the school was funded by, USAG grants and things like that. And
we're a community partner of the food bank network, and our grants come through, most of our grants come through the Vermont Food Bank. And they get a small amount of funding from the state. Otherwise, there's no state funding or federal funding associated with food shelves. But there are organizations, Community Foundation during the flood gave us a grant for people who were affected by the flood. We've gotten grants from Gifford Hospital, Ben and Jerry's, that kind of. But we have a whole. We're also all volunteers. There's nobody that's paid, and we have an arm of our operation that focuses on grant writing and other fundraising.
Alrighty.
I would say that even though grants make, I'm not sure if you have seen the updated numbers as of early December. We shared an updated pie chart showing our income sources.
That should be within
Just
here.
because so much of our fundraising does happen in the months of November and December. And so the ratios in terms of our sources of income have shifted quite a bit. So as of earlier this month, as of December 5th, we had 44% of our support was coming from municipalities, and the other 66% is all funds that the food shelf has raised on its own. Part of that is indeed grants. We would love to see that number get bigger, but the pool of grants to apply from so far seems, we apply for everything we can with all the volunteers that we have, but we have managed to raise at this point in the year 66% of our funds from the community, individuals, community organizations, grants, and we're increasing significantly our in-kind donations through a new partnership with Shaw's in Randolph, which has just been instrumental as we continuously try to cut costs in order to maintain our inventory. We're cutting items that we've stocked for quite a while just to kind of make sure that we're focusing on the essentials that folks count on, but anything that could be possibly considered superfluous has been cut because we need to bring costs down as the number of people relying on the food shelf services increases. And so with this new partnership with Shaw's, we've been able to offset the quantities of food that we've had to cut from our inventory with the free in-kind donations from Shaw's. And since the partnership with them formed in August, they're now providing 20% of our food, which is huge. So there's certainly opportunities to expand the funds we're bringing in, we hope, through additional grants. We hope that the federal government, the state, see the acute need at food shelves across the country and respond to that in the form of making additional grant money available. But we're definitely doing everything we can on a more local level too to come up with some way to supplement, whether it's dollars and cents or the actual food, which is of course the bulk of our spending.
Do you guys work with Vermont Fish and Game? I know that they have a program that a couple of game wardens started where you can have meat. You have to have it processed through them, of course, but because I know hunters used to be able to donate directly to food shelves, but apparently not anymore. So are you work with them so that they'll donate to you venison or things that?
We've tried. We've tried in fits and starts. Another volunteer had made a connection with a warden last fall, who was extremely helpful and very willing, and we followed up a number of times, but it never materialized in the form of a donation.
Yeah, I saw that on their website. They had a place where you could do that because we had a couple people who had deer last year and they wanted to donate, but they were told by the food shelf, well, we'll take it, but we're going to put a sign on it that basically you're liable if something, and they're like, forget it. So, but it did, then I went online and found where you could, there's certain places that through these two wardens you could take animal and then they would, it'd be processed and then it could be donated to the food shelf. But I just saw it on their website, so it just made me think about it.
For every possible way to get that income, food source in.
Yeah.
We get all of our cheese from cheese, which is an in-kind donation, and we also get from Hams.
Yep.
All of our fresh produce.
Nice.
On a weekly basis.
Free produce monthly.
Alrighty.
But it's definitely follow up on that.
Yeah.
Program. We've just missed this season, but for next year.
You never know.
Well, thank you for providing more information.
Great.
Did we have anybody else with public comment?
I have
Elvie?
something, just because, so the committee, the subcommittee that was here last meeting, we had a citizen who was here at that meeting, who was an attorney, reach out to our group about something that Ryan Palmer had, that's his name, right? I didn't know. Had mentioned at that meeting that he knew as not true, and that was just the duty to retreat part, and that's because in Vermont there is no duty to retreat. We wanted to clarify that. He did reach out to Ryan Palmer, and he was very, the way that he usually is very that it wasn't like.
Yeah, we had a
intentional.
conversation about that amongst board members because it's not. There's no, Vermont doesn't have a stand your ground law, but it also does not have right.
And you do have the retreat to defend yourself. The note is that it's a use of force to the point where the assailant stops. That's like the hard line that I feel like some people get kind of like. It throws people off because
you can't just shoot everybody that walks in your house.
No.
Right?
If they're running away, you have to let them leave. But it's like
exactly.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Where it's not necessarily the vigilante justice some people might want, but it's not as cut and dry as like you have to.
No, we've actually been around about that ourselves because it was a little misleading, and it wasn't just from him. There was other people too that we had the same thought. So I think a couple of us, I know Dave, myself, we kind of did a little digging around to see exactly what it was. I think some of it depends on the website that you find it from, because
Yeah,
a couple were really,
the law, the Vermont.gov
Yeah.
spot of it, just to kind of get, because I also found the same thing, where it's a little bit, depends on who you're looking at.
yeah, a couple of them made it sound like if you can, you have to leave. And so there was like a couple, I'm like, a couple of
It might be the
interpretations.
best policy. I mean, I probably wouldn't
Yeah.
move away,
But yeah, so there was, I agree, there was a little bit of,
But that was the
whatever,
only thing we
not
wanted
lack
to
of
just
clarity.
mention. We did look at some of the other things. I don't have them readily
Yeah.
available, but we were planning on just kind of like reaching out to him with those
Sure.
and just making sure that, yeah, but I mean, it didn't seem like it was super intentional. I looked at you because you were, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's-
I don't think
Yeah.
so. But that's good. I'm glad that you guys reached out to him and had a conversation. I know
Well, we
he,
did, the person who reached out to us
Oh,
also
good.
reached out to him before we even
great.
were thinking about it, because we were also under a similar assumption, so
Yeah.
it didn't ring.
Oh, that's good though. I'm glad. Yeah, I think that he really understood, and we'd had a conversation after that saying, I really thought maybe I was doing a better job reaching people, and so the fact that some people said they didn't know how to get a hold of him and that sort of thing. So I saw him taking some pictures of the screens.
I
That
mean,
was good.
our report was overall positive towards
Yeah.
them at least.
No, but I think he realized that he had some work to do.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good. I saw him taking some pictures saying,
Yeah.
oh, geez, I guess I got to do some work there. So that was good.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's great to point out, because, often in a lot of conversations, there's information that may not be, 100% true, or it's a portion of a fact, but not the whole thing. But, I think one thing that we probably all could gather around on the conversation was that, that the state has put us in a position where there's not enough law enforcement, and there are problems because of that, right? And those problems are, due to either, they don't want to prosecute people when they do get caught, or we just don't have the bodies to go out and make people be accountable for their actions. And now, it doesn't really allow, the law doesn't really protect us as homeowners as much either. I mean, if it's, it doesn't even, we used to say 2 o'clock in the morning, right? It used to be the famous thing, 2 o'clock in the morning, who's going to show up at your house? But that could be 6 o'clock in the evening now, because there's just not there. And I mean, we've had residents on the other side of town last year come in and testify about, it taking an hour or two to get somebody out there for it was a very heavy altercation between two neighbors that ended up in physically, assaulting each other, and it took over 2 hours to get somebody out there. But at the same time, what are your rights as a person, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, you have to weigh that. I mean, of course, you don't weigh that. You usually do what you think is right, and then, the results come after. But
You hope for the best. is
so
that
I mean,
okay?
so us as residents, we're kind of put in a really tough spot, right? I mean, we really can't do much, but nobody seems to want to help us either. So
The conversation we're having right now is even clear as mud. I really don't know what I can do legally. It depends on what judge, what DA, and what cop is involved. Because there's 3 different scenarios that could come up. Someone needs to, I think that's something we can't do, and I don't know who's going to do it, but someone's going to say, okay, Judge A, B, C, you all do it this way.
Yeah, I've never looked at, usually there's case law that will, that's why, I mean, the Vermont state statutes annotated is great online, but the books are helpful because they give you the case law. So I'm sure, I would assume that there's case law in Vermont that this has already happened, to somebody and they've,
But I feel like each
Sort
situation
out.
is up to interpretation of how that happened.
Are you talking about what level of force is necessary in terms of self-defense?
Mm-hmm.
So
versus stand your ground versus if you have to retreat. I think that's kind of the
So
talk.
I'm a criminal defense lawyer.
Oh.
I'm president of the Vermont Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. I'm also a Bethel resident. It's entirely placed in the hands of the jury as to whether or not the amount of force was reasonable.
Right.
And a jury can make that, a jury of 12 people can still make that determination. It's fact specific, like you said. It depends on what the surrounding facts and circumstances is.
And does precedent weigh in on that?
It does, but the precedent is largely that the jury gets to make a determination as to whether or not the amount of force that was used is reasonable. There is no duty to retreat in the state of Vermont, as everyone was talking about.
Right.
I corrected Sheriff Palmer about that 2 weeks ago as well. There's been a recent case in Windsor County where self-defense was an issue and duty to retreat was an issue, and it's very clear that there is no duty to retreat in the state of Vermont.
So it's really about what type of force is really necessary to end the altercation.
Yes.
Okay. There you go. Look at that.
Which is not entirely clear.
Yeah, exactly. You still don't know what to do.
It's just, you're hoping for the best out.
Yeah.
Because,
So
I was
maybe-
in the wrong house.
You bring a
and I thought I
knife to a
was in my
gunfight or a
house,
gun
and
to a knife fight.
It's
Exactly.
just,
If you're confronted with deadly force, you can use deadly force.
You start by hitting them in the head with a frying pan, and then you move up from there. That's it. If that knocks them out, you're done. You got a measured response.
get a couple dogs.
Yeah.
There you go.
I keep
That's
bringing
it.
that up. Just got to get a bunch of German
That's-
Shepherds.
there you
I'm
go.
telling you. People don't come near my house.
It's true.
Good luck.
I know. I come to his house, I sit out in the car. and
Last time he had
call
him pinned against his truck. Come up unannounced and the dog had him pinned against his truck. He's like, oh, I guess I can go anywhere. I'll call next time.
Yeah.
So, I
Well,
mean,
thank
it's
you for
funny,
that.
but it's not
Thank
funny,
you.
right?
It's nice to have, I mean, it's at least you know you got to get 12 people to believe
But
your
thank you,
story.
LV, for bringing that to our attention. All right, any other public comment?
I actually wanted to address Sheriff Palmer's discussion last time as well. So my name is Joe Strain, I live on Livery Stable Road. There are a few things that I found a little bit concerning with regard to the things that he said. I should tell you, my firm handles somewhere between 50 and 60% of criminal cases in the county. So I have a pretty clear picture of what criminal activity looks like throughout Windsor County. The Windsor County Sheriff's Department traditionally has not been a sort of heavy law enforcement agency. They've traditionally done a ton of traffic work, they've done a ton of court security, transportation of people to and from court or incarcerated, but they haven't been a traditional law enforcement agency in the same sense that Vermont State Police would be or that a local police department would be. Many of the sheriff's deputies aren't necessarily the best trained in terms of that process. And when it sounds like one of the major concerns that the select board has is that there are a few residences that are being used as essentially drug houses or are being used for the distribution of illicit drugs. The sheriff's department has never, that I'm aware of, been the primary investigating agency for any major drug crimes in the county. It's just not an agency that's equipped to handle that sort of situation. Now, they're talking about a very significant allocation of money from the town in order to address that situation. I think that the board should be aware that they're not the best agency to go about doing that. They just don't have the experience in that type of law enforcement. Now, they're supposed to get all the training, they have all the training, but they're not the Vermont Drug Task Force, they're not the Vermont State Police. They don't have a major investigating unit that I'm aware of. I've never seen them really respond to anything other than DUIs, domestics, sort of crimes that are happening in that particular moment. I don't believe that the sheriff's department is the appropriate agency to go about handling that particular issue. Beyond that, I think it's important that the board be aware that there's a statute in the state of Vermont that the sheriff himself can realize up to 5% of any contract into his personal income. So when the sheriff's department signs a contract, the sheriff himself has a potential personal stake in that contract. Each individual sheriff's department has different policies with regard to that statute, but the sheriff himself can realize up to 5% of the contract itself. I have a number of concerns with the Windsor County Sheriff's Department policing the town. I think that primarily what I've seen in terms of their enforcement is traffic enforcement, primarily writing tickets. There have been a limited number of DUI cases in town that they've investigated, but I've read the vast majority of affidavits of probable cause that have, for cases that have been filed by the state's attorney's office in the past 5 years. And I don't know where he's getting the idea that people are coming up from out of state to Bethel with automatic weapons. When he said that, that is not in any way supported by any arrests that have happened in Bethel that I'm aware of. And I've handled a whole lot of cases. So I think there's a certain amount of that that is reflective of other parts of the county, not reflective of what's happening in this town. And it's a bit hyperbolic when we're trying to get a bit larger contract from the Windsor County Sheriff's Department. So I'm very, very concerned about that. And I like for it to do that.
Yep.
I have a question. When you say that they're not the best situated, obviously you know that we had a constable, but we obviously had no hours. We can't contract with VSP. I've tried. And I was just asked this question earlier, I think of Dave Eddy, was, does the Windsor County Sheriff have a stake somehow in the drug task force? I wasn't sure, but when you say they're not the best, who would you recommend? Like, what's your...
Well, I'm not, as a criminal defense attorney,
Yeah.
I'm not in the business of
Right.
investigating crime. But
No, I know, I mean...
That being said, I mean, he can contact the Vermont Drug Task Force, and the Vermont Drug Task Force can work on those houses.
I will say that for 3 years, we worked with VSP and the Vermont Drug Task Force, and absolutely nothing came of working with those folks.
I mean, the Vermont Drug Task Force is primarily focused on places like Springfield, like Barry, Burlington, Rutland, the larger cities where you're going to get a whole lot more sort of trafficking activity. I don't know in terms of what agency might be better suited for
What our options are, right? They're limited.
But
Yeah.
I'm just saying that spending a whole bunch of money on the Windsor County Sheriff's Department being the one to try and tackle those drug houses, I don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see it.
I don't think that's the main purpose of them being here. It's on the list. And I'm not speaking for everybody, but as far as I'm aware of, we're contracting for the presence of a police department, for traffic, for thefts in town.
It was a
And then
focus of
some.
the meeting 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Well-
no, it's on the
Well,
radar.
I think the thing is there's two things, right? I mean, so we have moved away from a small town constable type enforcement. And mainly the reason why we moved away from it, it's almost impossible
have
to
any.
find an individual like that anymore. Like, we used to have so many years where we had one individual that we would share with 3 communities so that we could make him full-time, right? Because nobody wants to take a half-time gig if they can get a full-time gig with the sheriff's department, right? So it's virtually impossible to find an individual, and we struggled with that. So we had weighed out our options over the last 2.5 years, and so bringing on the sheriff's department was at that time mainly, you know, the complaints are speed enforcement and some of those, we'll call them lighter, dutier type things. And then, you know, over the last year and a half, which, as you know, being a Vermont resident, you know, things in Vermont have changed quite a bit in the last year. I mean, all you need to do is go drive around, you know, go drive down Rutland in the middle of the day, go drive to Church Street in Burlington, and the amount of activity that's on the streets, it used to be kind of hidden, it's out there in plain sight. And it's all great when it's in the bigger communities, because we say we're a smaller community, but now it's in the smaller communities, and we're starting to have those issues in hotspots, like we're talked about at the meeting. And I think, you know, when Elvie and the group did a really good job of just kind of like getting some feedback from the public, because we're trying to figure out, you know, what do we want to do? Like, we're not even a full year into the sheriff's department, so we're still trying to feel the sheriff's department now. We're trying to understand, like, you know, because originally, you know, it was kind of recommended to us that we should have a certain level of protection or service. And we decided to come in lower to start, like feel the person, you know, feel the individual out. And now we're trying to figure out as a board, like, where do we go from there? Like, do we keep it the same? Do we go up a little bit? Do we go up a lot of bit? You know, so that's why Elvie and the community did an awesome job of, you know, having conversations of, you know, just try to get the buy-in of what is it that we're all facing, or what do we want to see, or, you know. And of course you get a list that's, you know, this long of all kinds of different things, and some things are very easy, like speed enforcement's easy, right? But then more difficult things that we're finding out that really is out of our hands is, you know, things like drugs and some of those really, you know, heavy things that we seem to be more focused on in our community that we're worried about. So, you know, and you may be right. And something that the board starts to talk about is, you know, what do we think going forward that protection will be, and balance that with, you know, what we will receive for service versus what we envision, what we'd like to see is going to be probably two different things, right? So, and it just kind of get in the
discussion.
And we're a community that's kind of stuck at this point. Like there really is no other alternatives. Like there's, other than starting a full-time police department. But that comes with a huge cost and a huge liability, as you know, as an attorney. So it's not easy to have a full-time police department, and you know that as well too, being from Bristol. So, you know, so that's kind of where we're stuck. We're trying to figure out what, you know, we want to make everybody safe, but at the same time we want it to be cost-effective, and shifting that responsibility to not us, you know, to
And
have
Randolph's
to
going
do,
through that
so.
now, growing pains with, starting.
Well, Randolph had been policed.
I know.
Orange County.
I know.
Many years.
Exactly,
they've gone
because they
back
had
and
their
forth.
own department, and then they went to the Orange County Sheriff, and then that imploded, and then they
went
started their
back
own
to
police
their own.
department again. I was actually, I got an email from Trevor the other day, the town manager in Randolph. But you're right, there's a lot to it, and you're right about what the sheriff's department. My experience with Addison County Sheriff is exactly what you said. They did more traffic, they did, you know, service, you know, subpoena, you know, delivering, whatever, not subpoenas, but you know, whatever the word is, I can't come up
Service
with.
process.
Thank you, yeah, so they did a lot of that, so you're right. And, but yeah, like I said, I tried really hard to get a contract with VSP, but it was a no-go, and I've been denied now by 3 commanders of the state police, so, but.
Assuming we could afford it.
Assume we could
Yeah.
have afforded it,
Yeah.
but you're right, and what you say is duly noted and is
So what,
right.
if I can understand what you're saying, the activity of the Windsor County Sheriff then would be more like, not harassment, but, you know, driving by, you know, having a presence at these places, but not really effectively being able to do anything.
I would be surprised if they're equipped to adequately investigate some, you know, a drug network. I would be surprised if they are. They are, I'm sure they're doing a great job in terms of traffic enforcement. I see them out there all the time. Which if that's one of the priorities, then they are equipped to do that. You know, them driving by may have some kind of deterrent effect. I'm not a police officer. I'm just trying to make the board aware that if the priority is taking down the drug network, that the Windsor County Sheriff's Department is probably not the agency.
Yeah, I think that some of the things that we talked about, and certainly Jordan and I talked about, was the Sheriff's Department pulling over cars that have no registration, that have no, so maybe their deterrent comes via traffic control, and whether or not somebody's got drugs on them and they make a bust if they had probable cause or whatever is part of it, but at least by picking up people with smaller violations might be the deterrent to say, we're not going to Bethel because they ticket you for everything in Bethel, you know, maybe that becomes a deterrent where they're actually not investigating the drug crimes all the time, but we're doing some big undercover thing. We know they're not equipped to do that, but at least maybe a deterrent in another way. But you're right, it's all good things to talk to the sheriff about in a conversation the select board can have when they start talking about, you know, exactly how many hours they do want to budget. And Jordan and I had spoke about that earlier today, which was making sure that if we, you know, if the select board increases the hours, do they have reasonable expectations about what they're going to get? And that would be a good conversation to have with Ryan. You know, what do they believe the outcome could be, and what is he saying he'll deliver, you know? So making sure everybody's going in eyes wide open, so when they go to look at the contract in a year, they all have reasonable expectations. So I think those are some really good points, so thank you for saying that.
Inconveniencing them, you know,
Inconveniencing, yep.
I mean, the day after the election, we had 5 state troopers, 3 unmarked cars, and 1 Windsor County K-9 unit. For one guy running through the woods, they already had the kid that lived in the house in handcuffs in the street. And this went on for 2 hours with
state police. And back and forth and up and down and it, driving on people's lawns, but doing their job, I get that. But in 2 hours' time, the young man they had handcuffed was walking up the street. And we never heard anything about the guy that ran through the woods, nothing. And so in my mind, that's a real waste of resources and time and money. And it seems to me that, and it was said at that meeting about, and I think Sheriff Palmer said it, that we're at the mercy of the law. And the law's the ones that's what's letting them go. That's what's releasing them. But maybe we need to change the law as far as somebody that's allowing drug activity out of a home that isn't the drug dealer's home.
Oh, right, if not the homeowner.
The homeowner should be held accountable for letting that kind of activity.
Presumably they could be under a conspiracy theory, but.
No. You'd have to talk to Kirk White, or, I mean, Kirk had said that he might, you know, depending on the legislation or whatever, he said he might help, you know, support some change, so it might be a further conversation. Certainly you've lived through that activity for many, many years, and so maybe it's worth talking to him about to see, you know, where's the disconnect between legislature, judiciary, like what's the mix that needs to happen.
It's amazing though that, you know, I mean, the Windsor County Sheriffs have made their presence known and have inconvenienced them. But all it takes is a couple hours and they're back. You know, it blows my mind. And the vehicles are
In the Vermont Constitution, there's a constitutional right to bail for anyone who isn't charged with a violent felony. Or something punishable by life imprisonment.
And I think you hit it around the head there. It's, you know, unfortunately, I think that when it comes to the drug activity that we've seen, that's something that we should be, you know, talking to our legislators about if we want to see something different. Because, I mean, we all know the famous case of the lady there in Randolph there 2 years ago that got picked up 3 times in one 24-hour period for running drugs. I mean, on the interstate. I mean, how is that even possible? Like, that just blows my mind that you could do it once, not alone 3 times in one day. Like, but, you know, get out, you know, do 6 hours of paperwork, you're out on bail and go do it again. I mean, because there's, you know, we're not holding people accountable, right? So.
Yeah, the thing that bothered me, I guess, the most about the Taddy Lee situation was that he was picked up 2 weeks prior to that activity with a stolen weapon. And he was there should be some incarceration there.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, those are one of those things where it makes it our lives difficult on the board, because, I mean, we want to do, you know, we want our citizens to have the best service as possible, but that's something that's way out of our control. Like, right. You know, we would love to see all these activities stop instantly, but, you know, I mean, if there wasn't, we were talking about today, if there was an identity, I don't know, Sheriff's Department, Vermont State Police, or whoever, and they came in and said, we could 100% fix all your problems, and it's going to cost you an exorbitant amount of money, we would probably do it, you know? But the thing is, right now, you could pay an exorbitant amount of money and you're not going to see anything different. You know what I mean? Like, maybe some little things, but is it really cost effective based upon what you want to see? So, and that's the tough spot we're in, is we want to see everything
I just don't want to
really well.
Like the road that Route 14 got fixed there, the underpass, up on Route 66, that road that had the weird entrance got fixed. You know why? After 2 people died. Each one. Okay, now we gotta fix it. I don't want that happening on my hill.
Exactly.
Because I might be one of them that dies.
Yeah, no,
I
I
don't want it to
understand.
happen.
Nor do we.
Why do we have to wait for that?
Yeah, nor do we. And I think you're right. It depends whether people get arrested and then if they get cited, or, you know, it's just sometimes people are, right, that's the term, cited. They're just picked up, they're cited, they're released, and, you know, but it's a bigger issue. And unfortunately, it's an issue we can't solve, but we certainly can try to get, because I talked to Dave about it today when we were talking about the gentleman, whoever, the person who the sheriff's office arrested and they had the gun, and it's like, at what point can you get the feds involved? Like, I know currently in Addison County, there is a young man being held because he must have been he was a convicted felon, he had a gun, so now he's being held while they investigate a death of another young man that I know, and or knew. He passed away. And so it's like, when can you get somebody in who's really going to do something? I know we've had a couple offenders who were arrested in other states, and we're like, yes, and they'll cap them for a while. I'm like, they must have bigger laws or something there than in other states than Vermont currently, because that person was gone for a while.
We had this serial offender that broke into our garage and stole a bunch of stuff 2 years ago. I mean, he had a rap sheet a good zillion miles long. I mean,
that's right, I forgot.
It wasn't even worth us prosecuting him because he's got a million other charges in front of it.
He was already in jail.
He's already out in bail.
No, he was in jail. They just tacked onto his sentence.
It's just crazy. So.
And said, so.
But they picked up an individual he had 110 bags, individually bagged up, ready to go, and he was out selling it. And he got picked up, and the judge let him out with personal use. 110 bags. I mean, it's a problem in the system.
Yeah.
There are people who pick up that amount of personal use, just so. I'm not saying that was the case on that one.
I mean,
he's not saying it's right.
as a dealer,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
It is a lot.
Probably trafficking level.
And again, and that's something that, we have to all realize that when it gets to those level of issues are above our level. Those are things that really need to get handled at a higher level, at the state level to
There is a
do
big
things.
misconception, I think, in town, though, what we perceive as what the Windsor County sheriffs can do. And I think that certainly clears it up for me a little bit, but I do think that their presence is good. It's become an inconvenience at times, and the more we inconvenience them, I think the better off we're going to be.
Sure.
And I know we'll talk to them, but I'm under the impression that they are equipped to handle all of the situations at hand, whether there's only a couple of them that can or have the training, but that was the impression that we were given was.
It was. Well, we were told that straight up, that they could handle everything.
The training and the
But I think
resources.
I think from what he said, they more assist in, they'll assist VSP on some of these things.
But he told us straight up,
Told us
he
at
could
the
do
table that
everything.
It's all they're able to do.
So it's definitely something to hold his feet to the fire about and have a conversation with him about and see what he has for, people on staff and what they can and cannot do. That's why I said to Dave earlier, thank you, was having realistic expectations of what you may or may not be paying for. But.
Well, what else do we have public comment wise? Yeah.
Drive safe.
Let's go shovel your dooryard first.
Thank you.
Anybody online that had any public comment?
Nope. Well, maybe. This is freaking me out. I guess not.
So we will move forward. We have a couple of licenses. So we have Vermont Mobile Spirits, third class commercial kitchen license.
You did that one once already, but you have to do it again because there's a new owner of the building.
Okay.
Just FYI, if it looks familiar.
And then Creek House Diner LLC, first class restaurant bar license.
Yep. And Babes. And Babes Bar.
And, I'm sorry. Yeah, Babes Bar catering permit for 12/20. So unless there's any concerns that we are able to change in this process?
Motion to approve.
Same motion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. And draft budget, so we had to kind of release the full budget last time. In our, usually the first go around is kind of like, these are our wants, and then we start chiseling them down into needs and what can we afford.
Okay. So just to give you a brief overview, I told you in the packet that, so this iteration of the budget, I budgeted 36 hours of policing. So don't shoot the messenger. That's just what I was trying to figure out, because it seemed like I was at 11-something% throwing everything at it, and everybody's like, well, get it to 3 and come back. So here we are. So this I'm at currently with 30, this is the budget I came up with, to 36 hours a week for policing. So put that in there, I'm at 4.96%. This is contracting out the mowing, so I have a one-time deposit in other of $9,000 for the sale of the mower, the trailer. Obviously, I doubled the fines. The sheriff's office is on target to do $3,600 for fines, so I'm saying we could, if we're going to increase the hours, you could put it to $7,200. I also, because here's my beef with this process. My beef with this process is last year we put out a 3% budget. I did not include, we did not include in that number the $27,500 for the library, the $30,000 for the food shelf, the additional $6,000 for the senior center.
Right.
But now you're asking me to shove all that money in the budget, plus policing, plus whatever, and still come out at 3%. Well, I can't. I can't. And this iteration of the budget is me saying I can't, and because now I had to come up with all that funds, and I can't cut the budget, the town budget, to the core, because I don't have a crystal ball, and I'm looking 18 months out. If the wheels come off the bus, we need to have a little bit of wiggle room there. So what I am saying in this, in order for me to come up with some of the money, I had to think about what service we can cut. Well, it's Bethel. We don't offer a lot of services because we have, the roads and the policing. So I'm saying don't open the pool. And that would save us $50,000 about not opening the pool in staff and things. We don't have, I've said openly that I won't open the pool without a pool director. I have no applicants for that position currently, even though we've had it out for a while. But that's the only service. So if people want the food shelf, they want the library, they want more policing, we got to give something. So that was my thought, to do that. And then keeping in mind that this budget is a funky situation in that you guys have not had a townwide reappraisal for about 15 years by the time this is done. So this budget, while I'm at 4.96, say you come out at 5 or 6%, we know the grand list is going to grow. So just because our budget comes out at, let's just say you're at 6%, 5%, doesn't necessarily mean the tax rate's going to go up that, because you will have seen the growth in the grand list. Now, I'm not saying let's spend carte blanche. I'm not saying that. That's why I'm saying don't open the pool. That buys you $50,000. But it also gives us a chance to look at the growth in the grand list next year. Maybe you get an applicant and we open the pool next year. But if you're looking for doing all of this stuff and including it in the budget, because last year we came out with our 3%, then by the time everybody added on all the extras and approved them, I think we were 9 to 10% and had no growth in the grand list. So it,
But we can't open the pool right now. As of right now, we can't open the pool. We don't have a director.
As of this moment, I do not have a pool director. So no, and I'm definitely not opening the pool without a pool director. We tried it last year. It wasn't great. So we would still obviously have to chlorinate. We still got to keep it clean. We still, but the savings would be in salaries. I'm also saying in that budget, that's also cutting out, obviously, no deposit to the rec fund this year. It's cutting back the deposit to the reappraisal fund. Which still leaves you on target for your 7-year reappraisal. So that's fine, because the state has changed that. So you can't go another 15 years without a reappraisal, which is a good thing. So I feel like in last year too, we'd put some extra money into some of the capital funds. So we've kind of put that back to meet what the capital schedule was before. So, there's a lot of need, obviously. And also too, let us not forget, we're also going to be looking at, my guess is $1.2 million for a new town garage, which we haven't started the process on, but for me, that's coming. So I need to think about, that sort of expense. So there is also $30,000 In the capital cruiser fund, which I have left alone because you said you guys were going to hold it for a year, but, you know, that's also something. But once you empty that fund, it's empty, and it's hard to keep throwing money at it. So I did try to go through, and I scaled back stuff. I talked to the fire department. You know, Gary had won $8,000 for his fund. I said, how about 3? I did approach the library and the food shelf. The library is asking for their full $30,000. The food shelf went down by 3. I had a great conversation with Joanne Marshall because the Historical Society wanted $5,000 for their Veterans Memorial. When I reached out to Joanne and said, hey, look, I don't have the cash, but can we give you a page in the town report, maybe do a mailer, so we'll help you with your fundraising, but I can't give you money. She was great. She's like, we'll take the page in the town report, don't worry about that. So I got $8,000. But
Have you spoken to the Playhouse Theater?
no, I have not. I haven't spoken to Bennett. He knows about the ask for the library to drop because he's on the library board, but I could reach out to him. I'm not really sure where you are with human services.
Right now, they're aiming at 3. We sent them a letter, and I don't know if they're going the petition route or what they're doing. I haven't heard anything since.
I didn't know if it was worth being like, we'll put you in the budget for $1,000 and just let it go. Or if, because last year he said that he only did that because he had to do the petition. Well, if we don't do the petition, then can you just take the $1,000?
Yeah, I can ask him.
It seems
I'm
reasonable.
sure it'll
Everybody
come up.
wins.
It'll come up in the conversation on Wednesday, I know.
Okay.
Well, then you
At
could
our
tell
Human
him.
Services.
You could
I've
tell him.
already sent him a letter and said,
Yeah.
and said, no, you need to talk to the select board, and here's the statute. And
Yeah.
So you could,
heard
I don't know if
anything.
you want to, but you could bring that message with you.
The select board will give you $1,000 if you, yeah.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, if we just drop it in.
Yeah, so when you see, I've left a couple highlighted spots here, and like I said, the sale of the mower is a one-shot deal. Increasing the fees for the sheriff's department, I do not think that's unreasonable. I did budget $6,000 for the fire assistance for firefighters grant that Dietrich, Gary, myself are writing right now. So that $6,000 is in there, but will only be spent if we get the grant. And when I get to law enforcement, you can see that I gave you options. This is what 38 hours gets you, this is what 36, 40, 34, so I kind of went through but I mean, pretty much all of it is similar to the last budget round. I did go through line by line by line and dialed it back, cut the select board salaries back to what you're getting this year, reduce some training in the lister's office, and
Is that an additional person in the lister's office, or is that
that's just Jane.
Jane kind of floating back and
Yeah,
forth?
it's Jane doing 18 hours a week because you don't, and then,
She works with Pam.
yeah, and then he'll do some reappraisal. And then, but the thing that was really big was Warva, and their numbers are in the budget. So I was doing great until I saw that number. I was like, yike. And that's the tough one. And like I said, I think I'm 13,000 shy in the current budget because we only get 6 months at a time because they're calendar years, so we don't know.
Well, does it make sense to use some of that 30?
Some of the cruiser fund?
Yeah. Or,
Maybe.
undesignated fund money?
Well, the thing about the undesignated fund balance is it's not cash. It's not cash. It's not liquid. It's basically your equity. It's your assets, but it's not cash. So the thing about Warva is...
It's not a big pot of money.
It is not a big... The money tree is dead. And if you look back at the 3 years that Warva, their last 3 increases are tough. And I'm not saying they don't deserve every nickel. I'm just saying that they're high. And you don't have options besides Warva. That's the other thing too, is it's a trick, but...
So the cruiser
wait, Ellie is waving her hand.
Yeah, but we don't have to take.
Okay, I'm just telling you.
The cruiser fund is, not either way, but we did plan on it just being a backup in case the sheriffs don't work out with them. What is our plan?
That's what I want to know. I mean, it's tough.
But it's
Who you got?
$30,000 in insurance to, what are we gonna do then? But I don't know if it's necessary or not, but, you know, I don't think anyone's sold that, you know, the sheriff's here, everything's fixed, and now we don't have to worry about any of that.
I don't think we're gonna go back either.
Yeah. I know.
No.
Once you have a certain amount of coverage, it would be hard
Can't
for
go
you to
back to
dial
like a
back.
constable. So I think we'd have to figure it out when the time comes,
When they, you know,
regardless,
cross that
whether
bridge when
there's
they
money
come
there or
there.
not.
Right, yeah.
Can't just call it quits and say, well,
No.
that's that, so.
Yeah, you really, I mean, you have two options, basically. You either start your own police department or you contract with the sheriff's office.
Or somebody, but, you know.
Yeah, and right now, that is your only option to contract. So I think you're right. If you become, say you go to 36 hours a week, you're gonna be used to that level of service, that level of traffic control. He's supposed to be your dog warden and all that too. So once you get used to that level of service, it is gonna be hard for you to dial back.
I mean, there is Orange County, there is, like. and
Who's
obviously they're
left
not
in
doing-
Orange County?
Right, they're not doing well.
No, besides the sheriff. I mean, we sold him our cruiser, but I
But
don't
it's
know
like,
who's left.
I don't think we're.
George.
I don't want to live on, we're dead set with Windsor, and it's the only
It's year to
thing
year.
we'll ever see, and,
Right, no, that's true. I mean, it's year to year.
right.
It's year to year. And who's
But-
to say you couldn't get down the road, they don't find out this is a big issue, and maybe there's money in a few years for small towns to start police departments. I mean, I don't really know what the future's gonna hold, but for right now, at least you're only contract year to year, and,
So, I don't know. if we wanna
I don't
release
think
that
it would hurt
into
to
the
take the
budget.
13 out of the 30 if we needed to.
take the
Push them.
13.
I just release it all.
You said you were short 13.
I'm not.
Oh, yeah, if I needed to, yeah. I'm hoping I can just find it in the budget.
I think we work really hard, Teresa works really hard, and we go to 4.86, maybe 5.11, and I think the budget's got to be what the budget is, and put it out there, and let's see what happens
At town meeting.
at town meeting.
I mean, we certainly,
We need to be fiscally responsible, and I think we are really being very,
Trying to.
very responsible.
yeah.
But the world is not allowing us to be 3%. That just doesn't work anymore.
Well, and the other thing too is you're trying to tuck all these expenses back into the budget. So before we put out a 3%, then everything was an add-on. Now you're saying, put it all in the budget and still come out at 3%. I'm a magician. I mean, I'm
Well, I mean, that shouldn't make a difference.
but it does because.
Once it's been in the budget, you're at 3%
I know, but
growth.
exactly. We were-
Last year it made a difference.
It made a huge
But now it's already been part
It
of.
could be
the-
3% if you put all this to vote.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to know.
I mean, I think the things that
So
challenge
when
me
you-
is,
When you do, excuse me, Chris, when you do the budget then, you've already assumed that the stuff, if it's voted on as a separate article, those 3 or 4 are getting passed.
In this budget,
And it's in that
in this
budget
iteration, I
already.
am, yeah. If everything gets
As
passed.
opposed to doing a budget with those over here.
Right.
And here's our budget, and
Right.
if this goes through, it
Yeah.
goes to.
No, this is to tell you, if everything goes through, you're at
This is the budget.
4.96% over last year.
So is that a
I'm
better
not-
presentation than doing it the other way?
And then that's if the grand list doesn't cut back on 5%, right?
Right.
Which you're expecting something, not.
I do expect, yes, the grand list is definitely going to grow because you just had a town-wide reappraisal. So even if the home value didn't change, which is going to, the land value is going to change. So you're definitely going to have some growth in your grand list. Because last year we took 2 hits. We had no growth in the grand list and the budget jumped so big because of all the appropriations. So we really took it hard
I
last year.
mean, so you could have it at
I'm on the revenue page.
2 to 3% if you warned everything, but if you don't warn those items, it's at 5%.
Right. So when I did this, I included everything because it was just easier to show you as a board to say, okay, if everything passes,
Yeah.
with every number I've got, this is where you're at right
So
now.
if,
Next Monday,
if
can
those,
you show us one with those warned,
With them pulled out of here?
yeah,
just to see
Sure.
what it says?
to see what the difference is, because now we,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
you can
probably
say,
Chris can calculate.
last year we were at 2 or 3 and we ended up at 10.
Right.
This is 4.96 over last year.
I would love to see it.
Do this for presentation
I have to
purposes.
check
Do
my
it,
formula.
but just see it.
revenue's down 10 grand.
But
Cost
here.
is up 119,000.
I have
I had
my
a net
budget
of
right here.
129,000,
Hang on, I have my budget on.
which that's 3.86%, which is 5.38 cents.
Well, hang on.
I mean, I think the thing that we have to be very careful of, and I know everybody in the state of Vermont likes to do it this way, but I'm not, is, come up with one-time solutions to,
Yeah.
to solve our cost issues this year. And I like to solve the cost issue, not let's add 30 grand from the cruiser fund to plug it this year.
Right.
The things we have to, we've been talking about for 2 years now is we have, which started off as a one-time, we're gonna use that now is permanently in our budget, is, we have $54,000 at the transfer station that in a year or two is gonna be gone. And so if we don't adjust accordingly, we're gonna instantly raise whatever that year is, 2 cents to everybody, just because we, have found a permanent home for it.
Right.
I mean, sometimes it's necessary to use one-time funds.
Yeah, no, that's right. My formula's right.
However, I think we have to be careful with, just passing costs, passing it through and keeping it in there. And, I think there's still things in this budget that we could tighten up. And I think Therese does a good job of, the way a lot of our budgets used to be is we didn't factor in enough risk into our budget. And sometimes we got screwed, like on retirement or things like that. And Teresa's done a really good job of making sure that we're, she normally factors that and maybe a little bit more just to keep us safe. And, there might be some opportunities here where we, maybe not factor quite as high in here. We could, like Warva, I know it's going up, but we're just kind of assuming what the next 6 months might be because it doesn't line up with our with our budget.
Yeah, I took their 3-year average. Isn't there more of a stuff in here?
So, I don't know.
But that's going to bite us in the asses for the second half of this year.
We could, it is, but I'll start searching for that money now.
I'm
But
not saying,
did I give you
I'm
one?
just saying that's a good placeholder, but it doesn't always work.
Well, I could also reach out to Frank, I'm gonna slaughter his last name, Cyrillis. He's our Warva representative, and ask him because he is also the treasurer now, and see what he says. Like, look at your last, your 3-year average now is 10.2. I'm multiplying it by 10.2 so I can stay in the ballpark. What does he really think next year is going to look like? Is he continuing to expect these high increases each year, or what does he see, for next year? Especially too, since, like we said, they factored in the uncollected debt that they had been subtracting from their budget for years, and now they added it back in. Obviously, that was a hit for them as well. But did I give you the Warva stuff in your packet?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't find it in my packet. So that is something, I could definitely reach out to Frank about that.
This is
Chris.
the cost difference year over year, isn't it?
It's, for expenses, 3, yep, over, let me just see, wait, let me make sure we got the same budget. Oh, sorry, not on page 10. Let me just make sure my formula's right. I just checked my revenues, it is. Let me see. Right here, this is.
I mean, costs are definitely up. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We go, whatever, grocery store, whatever we go to, and the cost is up. But at the same time, cost is up because people are kind of accepting in some ways that cost is going up, I think, we all want stuff, and I want a Corvette, but I don't have one, and I think we have to figure out what is the, a little less luxury sports car that I'd like to have that's not a Corvette, and I think, some harder decisions need to be made on, our budget and what those services are. And I think we're getting, I'm saying like I think we're getting to a point where if, that we have to really look at the services we're providing at the town. And I think a majority of the people in the town want to see a pool open. Now I know that there's, a likely possibility that we may not have a pool director. So that makes it, impossible to open, safely and cover cover,
Yeah.
our responsibilities at the pool. But to just take it out of the budget, I don't, and I know we have to factor in things like, we're still looking for one person at the Public Works. And we have to factor in the worst case scenario if that person comes on and gets a family plan.
Right.
So, there might be $40,000 in the budget that we're just,
Could be.
it's in there in case the person takes a family plan versus a single
don't.
plan,
Right.
Is that something that we gamble with? And, do we not put all that in there? And if it happens, it happens, and we'll have to find a way out of it.
Who's this we came up with?
Well, so I think those are the challenges, and like,
Yeah, no, it's true.
I mean, I think,
It's true.
and like we were talking about with the human services, it is a vicious circle.
It
so
is.
the higher your taxes or the higher cost of living is in your community, the
Yeah.
more social services people are going to need. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just, especially on fixed income. I mean, myself and things like, my wages went up a little bit and costs have probably not outpaced that, but I'm still doing fine. But if you're, if you have fixed income, I mean, you're,
Yeah, Social Security.
and costs are going up, then, what do you have? And
Right, and you do have a percentage of the population that, I mean, remember, we got the $150,000 local match waived. Yeah, we're gonna still end up paying for it, but we got it waived because we had people in the district so many people that were lived below the 200% of the poverty level. So so Chris is right, it does become a vicious circle, and so.
But there is a reality here that, I looked at the budget really hard since
Again?
you and I looked at it. And I mean, and if, if I wanted to get really nasty in the budget, we're still going to be asking for a bigger chunk than normal from the tax people. And,
Yeah.
and it's, for so many years over the last 7 years of the 9 years I've been on the board, we increased, anywhere between nothing and 3 cents a year.
Right.
And it kind of depended. One year might be 3, next year might have been 1. We had 1 year that was 0,
It was because the growth of the grand list.
growth of the
outpaced
grand list and things
Yeah,
like that were
absolutely.
going up. But now we've hit that plateau, and there really is no growth in the grand list.
There
It's
will be
kind of-
this time,
the
but
cost
yeah.
is outpacing that. And, and just like we're seeing in all the communities, now these worst case scenarios that we used to have at 3 cents now, are 5, 6, last year was 10 once everybody voted in all the add-ons. So, but is 10 cents every year sustainable? And I think we all can understand that that's not.
No,
So you haven't had a reply from the library yet?
I did, no, was the reply. Lisa was lovely. She came in and told me, and just said, look, you know what, that when they had come to the select board before, their plan is still the same. They have not increased their services. They're just using the 30 to keep the library open and do the programs that she explained the other night. And they're not using it to fund another position. They're really using it to, keep the doors open and let their fund grow in hopes that they don't have to continue always taking money from the town. Or, excuse me, can someday in the future, take less. But no, so she was great about it on Friday.
So I guess I can give you my notes, and
Okay.
you guys can do what
Let's
you
hear
want
it.
with them. But so I was just wondering on some of this stuff, and I know that you do a good job with, kind of future projecting these
Well, you got it.
things. But like, I just wonder with Warva, do we take a little bit of a gamble on what that next 6 months is?
Let me
and,
ask Frank.
Maybe not go up by as much, and I thought that maybe that would save us about $10,000 or $15,000.
Let me ask him about what he projections.
And I was just throwing everything on the table here, so
Yeah.
don't shoot me. I'm just throwing stuff around.
Just, yeah.
I had a question mark. I like to shoot recreational, but do we open the can of worms on? Is it time to keep the shooting range open? It's, when we went through this thing, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago or so with the shooting range. The one thing that came out of the shooting range, which it was definitely it could have went either way, but
Yep.
there was support and then there was not support.
Right.
Is one thing that came out of it was that we were going to have to provide some sort of insurance there, right?
Yep.
And just like all insurance companies, that starts off with a very introductory small fee of a few $100s, and now this year it's going to be $3,900. So it's like,
Yeah, it's not pretty.
I really like to have it. I know sometimes it's a pain in our butt, but just looking at that is, do we pay $3,900 for insurance on a shooting range? Like, if we're talking about closing the pool, we could close the shooting range faster than the pool, you know?
True.
I know you have, it's on your list of things to have, but hasn't been used, so I was
Yeah.
looking at the office laborer position,
Yeah.
temporary thing at 10 grand.
Yep, we could cut
I
that.
wondered if maybe the law enforcement, we cut that back 15 from what's in the budget, so that was,
Put you to how many hours? I'm at 36.
so from 140 down to 125,000,
So you're saying 32
or
hours?
whatever that puts for
That
hours.
puts you at 32.
In mine, I added the pool back in.
Okay. Yeah, like I
And
said,
then
I just took it out.
I guess you look at it as, you know, it's 50 grand that's in the budget, but if we don't open it, then we could use those funds for maybe some of the things we axe now, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll leave the pool in. Hang on, let me catch up with you. All right.
You know, and I kind of went back and forth. I know the fire department wanted some things with the equipment fund,
And I did dial that back.
but at the same time, we got money in there for grant, so maybe there's an opportunity there. If they don't get the grant, they could use that towards their fire and safety equipment.
I'll ask you. I mean, like Gary said, he goes, it's just an ask, Therese.
You
He's
know,
like,
do
you
we?
can tell me no.
I know you took the guardrail from 20 grand down to 10.
I did because if we get the grant to do, if we want to apply for the paving grant for Camp Brook, and then we're going to have a meeting about Camp Brook on Thursday at 2, and then, or grant to do a Camp Brook, a culvert on there, is I needed enough money to do, if we're going to repave, obviously, we need to do the guardrail. So we did cut it from 20 to 10, and maybe I could go a little further, but I'm thinking it's
Wondering if
40
we
bucks a
just
foot.
Axe it.
Well, I don't want to axe it, because I mean, well, you know, legally.
I don't know. I don't think
well,
we're going to
legally-
get a paving grant.
But legally, we have to keep, we can't axe it completely because we have to make sure all the ends are repaired. I mean, that's a liability if we get an accident and one of the, then we are, so we have some work to do there. But we could, I can ask
Well,
AJ, he's
what I
supposed to
mean
go
is,
measure it.
there's opportunity, like I'm saying, like there's opportunities that, you know, let's say the rec department doesn't open the pool this year. So
Yep.
There's $50,000 that could then spill into doing some other things if we need to.
Yeah,
And then I was kind of looking at the public works position, like, do we cut?
Take a chance.
Like, instead of putting all 40 grand in there, if they take a family plan, do we cut it in half and say 20, hedge our bet a little bit? And
okay.
and if it does, then it's part of us doing business, we'll have to find the money, and I don't know. But even doing all that, you know, you're still at a,
All right, so I've got
you
you
know,
at.
still in here at
splitting
like
the
4
difference on
cent
public.
increase,
Right,
which is,
I
you know,
know.
still pretty high.
Cut culverts to 10, or guardrail, not culverts. I'll see, I gotta ask AJ. He's got to measure, but of course, between the snow and whatnot.
So what I did was
Oh, no,
just
it's
kind
already at
of,
10.
I just kind
Already
of,
at 10.
Yeah,
I kind of
sorry.
chopped everything down. I mean, I don't think we're
So add. the pool.
flatlined or, and I didn't take any services away.
Right.
And that's still just, that was still, you know, 4 cent increase in what people
Yeah.
would pay. So when we talk cents, I like to talk cents because if you talk percentages, those can be a little screwed. Cents is what I'm actually paying. So, and it changes slightly every year, but just kind of roundabout figures, like if you have a $250,000 home, which none of us do anymore thanks to inflation, but if you have a $250,000 home, every penny on the grand list is just over $25. So think of any time I say a penny added to your tax is $25, okay? At the school, it's much different. Like every $110,000 is 1 penny. So some of that stuff is a little different. So, you know, when we're talking about, you know, 4 cents, last year it went up 10 cents. So think of, you know, last year everybody's, you know, if you had a $250,000 house, you know, you went $250 in your tax bill. Just kind of putting those things in perspective when we talk about those things.
So I guess I would like to have each board member, like, what do you, like, just, I'm curious about law enforcement especially, because that's a big driver of the budget. What hours do you feel that you want to see in there? So Chris is saying under law enforcement, let's see at the beginning, that he's saying, his thought is going to, hang on, sorry, we're on page 4. That he's saying 32 hours a week. Dave, how many hours would you like to see? I just kind of trying to figure out where everybody stands here.
I would like to see 40, but I might be I might be willing to compromise at 36.
Okay. So say right here, between 30, 40, and so we 38 hours then, Dave?
No, I would take either one.
Okay.
I want the 40, but I would, if it come down to compromising, I would take the 36.
Okay. Jordan, what's your thought?
I'd take 38.
Okay. All right. And then, I don't know, I'll have to ask Denise. What's your opinion, sir?
I was happy with the 36.
Okay, so we got Dave and Paul at 36, Jordan's at 38, Chris is at 32. I'll have to ask Denise. I'm just curious because it's just going to give me a better handle on, that's obviously a big chunk of change. Went from 80 to, I just want to know what kind of percentage.
And I think my whole thing of just coming to where I had the 32 hours is, I'm still looking at, where we were a couple years ago. I mean, we were, we had a budget of $24,000 a year. And then we kind of sharply have increased that to 80, over the last couple of years. And we haven't even seen the full effect of the 80 yet. What I mean, because we're just in the, we haven't even made it halfway through the $80,000 budget that we have signed up with the Sheriff's Department. So I think I'm still collecting data, like how is this going? It feels like things are going fine when it comes to speed enforcement and some of that stuff. Obviously we have other troubles that are on our mind, but again, I don't know if $500,000 would fix those,
I'm really curious, because I haven't sat in on any of the meetings after having Joe speak. I would like to quiz Mr. Ryan about a couple things and say, hey, you're getting a lot of money, and you told us this, but we're here and you're not able to do that. Explain it to me in English so that I can understand.
Sure. He certainly
Because right now we're doing,
knows
what, 20?
how his officers are changed. You're 24.
So,
we were under the impression there's one of his officers that supposedly
The new one that just came on
has
from
the training
Barry.
for all that drug stuff.
Who's leaving? I thought he just told me that someone's going to Williston.
No. This is the one that just came on.
Oh, I thought
From
this was-
Barry, she was very active in the drug
Task.
scene.
Oh, in
for
Barry.
them
Oh,
in the Barry Police Department.
oh.
She transferred over.
I don't remember her last name, do you?
Lewis.
I think my whole thing is just, I haven't gotten enough data with them yet to make a good informed decision on where I think whatever.
I don't know what's
28,
happening.
32, 40, or 50 hours is going to bring us.
I don't know what happened, but I
Yes.
know that twice I've seen her with the blue lights on and the people sitting in the white car, and she's doing something with them, and there's a
Well, she saw people in-
disgusted look on their
Yeah.
face, and that's right by my house.
I mean, they've not done nothing.
No, but,
But
okay.
I
So
would.
I'm just going to state that I am very pro law enforcement. And if it was me,
Right.
the penalties in the state would be unbelievably hard.
Yeah.
Okay? However, we also have to understand, and if he was standing here, I'd tell him the same thing, is the sheriff is a salesperson. So, and I'm not saying anything bad about that because that's his job.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
to sell a service and he sells that. And I think the two things I'm trying to balance in my head is one, I haven't seen them perform the whole contract, which is their first contract, which was 80, right? And he's, we need more. But at the same time, when I sat down with him, and this is kind of what irks me the biggest, is when we sat down, he had given Teresa and I some figures before. Like, he wanted to sign us up for 40 hours. That's what he initially wanted to sign us up for. And he's like, 40 hours, $125,000. And we're like, well, let's ease into this thing, like when we were talking. And now 40,000 is, or 40 hours is 180,000 in 1 year. 1 year. So it's like, I still just want to feel his service out. And I don't want to give him a bunch of money if we don't feel like this is going to work. And I think there's nothing to say that we can't increase our hours as we go.
The hard part is you just have to make sure, the hard part for you guys is you have to make budget decisions, and that budget's going to the voters, and if you decide to increase his hours later, you can't because you don't have the money.
Well, what I'm saying is,
You mean overtime, meaning next
Yeah.
budget?
yeah,
Okay.
I mean, there's things, it's tough for me because I
Yeah.
haven't seen,
And it's hard, yeah, because you guys are
like,
all.
my picture to begin with was, that he's gonna come in and do a lot of the similar things that the constable did, which is, have a presence. Well, we haven't seen it yet, but the idea is to have a presence, develop relationships with the business owners, the school, go to sporting event, like do all those things that, community involvement, speed enforcement, and I don't expect him to be out there chasing drug dealers and stuff, because I just don't think that's practical. Like, I just don't think that's, like, I would like him to do that, but I don't know if that's practical. And, I mean, we watched, VSP doesn't even do that. I mean, so it's like,
But it's also hard because if you have this whole list of him meeting, establishing relationships with business owners and the school and this and that, 24 hours isn't very much hours for him to do these
I know.
things. So I think you guys are smart in
Yeah.
the idea of adding more time, but I can ask Ryan if he's available for the next select board meeting, if you'd like, kind of short notice.
And it's-
I can
and it's
ask
big
him.
money.
Maybe he could attend via Zoom.
I mean, when
if
we're
he's busy.
talking a 4 or 5 cent increase to people, I mean, right now, 4 cents of that is at the policing level,
Yeah.
If we, look at, what's going up, what's going down, I mean,
There's only
the biggest
1
movement
cent
is
in the whole
there.
rest of the budget.
Well, depending on what we moved in and out, but,
All right. Let's see your chicken scratch. Let me see what else you got that I missed.
I don't know how you're coming up with 4%.
I'm telling you, because if you look at this, my budget is right, because remember, yes, that's expenses, but your revenues are down. So you have to factor in that 3-point expenses is going up because we've lost 1.94% in revenue, but my formulas are right.
Because the library, the food shelf, and Tri-Valley and everything else is way more than what we put. in the sheriff's side.
$99,000
No.
right there.
The sheriff's would only be going up like 60 or
The
something.
library would be the same as it was last year.
But that was all
The
voted.
food
in
shelf,
after.
yeah, but so last year at this time, that did mean something, because what we did last year is, those people weren't on the warning prior. So like food shelf had never been on the warning. So what we decided to do was not put it in our budget, and we put it as it's standalone, but once it's been voted in, it becomes a collective whole of the whole budget. So, I mean, so now that you have voted them in, we all pay tax on that, right? So it becomes part of the budget. I mean, it's not to say that I voted for or against it, but if we're looking at percent increases, that is everything that, apples to apples from last year. You'd have to figure on that.
I mean, I think you'd make some people happy if you closed the shooting range, but I think you'd really make some people ugly too.
Well, I'm not saying close it, I'm just saying those, just throwing it out there. I mean, I think we do have to look a little harder at,
No, I'm fine with that.
if we feel
people
as a
thrill.
board that we need to provide a little more service into the community with, policing, then I think we do have to look at, is there some services we're providing now that maybe we don't need to have, or we can limit a little bit? I don't know, I mean,
I'm sure the people in Sand Hill would be thrilled if this shooting range was closed, because obviously it's tough. And like I said, this is the first year that I've ever had to issue a no trespass order for somebody at the shooting range. And so, the beef would be to try to, how do you actually close it,
Yeah,
It'd be tough, but
So-
go in and tear everything down.
So there's going to be a change in the human services budget.
Right, because I'm just putting placeholders as where they are now.
Right, and we've got a couple that have not applied this year, so there'll be some,
Free money.
little bit of
You're gonna
savings.
free up some money?
Well, yes and no,
Okay.
because, like more, Tri-Valley gets taken out of here, but
Yeah.
it gets put in over there.
Exactly.
So that's going to be an increase of
That's almost the same.
5,800, or
Right,
whatever
right.
that number was.
Yeah, 18, yeah.
Close.
The food shelf last year
So,
was part of human services, that's out of there now. But it's going to be coming back in.
$24,000 a penny.
The works personnel is
And then there's
35%.
another one.
And the sheriff's would be what?
Right, but you also have to understand that last year, some of the
Yeah.
public works.
No, you're right, that's great to
Piece
know.
of that was
gives a
under
little
the,
wiggle room. So that's
Parks
great. And you said
and-
you're meeting Wednesday?
Parks and,
Sweet.
What percent of that was?
That would be helpful. What was your question? I'm sorry, Jordan. Paul was answering. Tell me.
Percent of the public works personnel came out of the Parks and Fund?
It did in the past, yeah, but not.
So you took out the Parks and Fund and put
Yeah.
it into the personnel?
yeah, because
Yeah.
you can see the
Yeah.
parks and public places is under
Went down.
70,000. So some of that went,
Not all, it's
you know.
not dollar for dollar.
Yeah,
But
some
no.
of it moved.
Yeah, so there was a percentage of it because,
But we took out personnel and equipment and put back in a contract.
yeah, I did. Because that would help, then we would obviously get rid of our equipment, but it's very difficult. I couldn't find anyone to mow this year. And it doesn't make any sense to pay someone CDL wages to be on a lawnmower all summer.
I'm not
But no,
saying you
you're,
did wrong.
no.
I just want to
Because
clarify.
we had somebody, remember Adam did it one, and that was perfect. You know, he did this, and then he wasn't in the summer, I had 2 different seasonals, and it was perfect. And then
Yeah, and we,
it wasn't, and then it was over, and then he got a full-time job with
and we
Benny's, which
cut,
he
we cut a
totally
few
deserved.
things from last year, like, last year we added to some of our
The capital.
capital, you know, those funds a little bit, and we took that back this year. So there was like 50, 60 grand worth of those that we didn't, you know, that we backed off a little bit.
Yeah. Because we had taken, last year, we had added additional money to capital roads and
Yeah, I
highway
was gonna
equipment,
say,
so yeah,
not equipment.
so we dialed it
Equipment
back.
funding.
So we dialed it back and have adjusted the capital funds and then dialed back. I had originally said no money to go into the reappraisal fund this year. You'd still be on target for your reappraisal for every 7 years, I think it is now. But Chris, he said, well, let's just leave it at 7, drop it to 9. But yeah, it's, you know, it's like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, you know, so.
And some of this, not to say it's fictitious, but some of this is like, you know, the goal is to have that 4th person on the public works crew. So
Right.
what we
What
can-
percent is that?
If I can hire.
But-
I calculated, didn't ask for percentages.
But as you know, Dave, the last 4 years, we've been looking for a 4th person, you know? That's never happened.
Well, no, I wasn't.
Well, you know what I mean, but like, we have to budget for
Let
it
me
because
see,
if
I'll tell you, hang on, Jordan.
if we do get somebody, and then we have to budget the worst case scenario, which is they're gonna take a family plan, which is 3 times more expensive than a single plan, so.
Yeah, hang on.
And
Let me add these.
unfortunately, we have to pay that because that's what the market
Yeah.
pays. Because the school people don't get paid 100%.
Hang on, Jordan, let me just do the math
They're
here.
paying 20% of their cost. And I believe the state workers pay a percentage of their cost.
They do.
I mean, ideally, it'd be,
So the only way that would work is if every municipality went into a contract and said, okay, we're going to start out, you're going to pay 5% of your healthcare this year, 7 next year, so on and so forth, like we did with the school, and get to a point where they're shouldering some of that huge number.
And and just in this, I mean, I don't have the exact number, but it's around 2, maybe 2.5 cents of this budget is just an increase. Well, I mean, granted, things go up, things go down, but there's like 2.5 cents of increase in here just in retirement percent, benefits and things like that that are continuing to outpace it. I mean, we even went to a different insurance carrier this year,
Right.
and we're, you know, still 13% increase. You know, retirement increases at 17%. I mean, these are just things that just, you know, they're not sustainable over a long period of
So
time.
Jordan, if
but-
I take the 106,000 minus the 68,798, which would be the savings of the parks after, you know, subtracting the contract amount, it's 37,202, so it'd be like a penny
And a half.
and a half.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, there's,
so that's that. And like I said, if we go back in and take a gamble on health insurance, I mean, I'm happy to come back, but is there any other, besides Chris's note, does anybody, Paul, do you have some, like, where I can go back and take a deeper dive, or did anybody?
No, I was just looking at the, you know, the capital funds.
Yep,
whether or not they could be dialed back
and we did dial it back
more, a little more.
a little bit, and I did,
$500,000 grader and a $260,000 loader and $250,000 trucks, and
yeah,
they're all in the schedule.
yeah, I know, it's all, I mean, there's no,
That fund started out at $30,000 a year.
yeah.
When I was first seeing it happen.
Was it? Yeah. And plus too, like we talked about, was after, certainly after COVID, we had a capital budget for equipment, and then after COVID, the prices were just beyond and for equipment. But the grader is a nut I haven't cracked. Honestly, I think that's gonna have to be a loan. Because right now, even, I mean, you guys just bought one, it was like 800,000, but without all the bells and whistles, knew it was gonna cost $500,000. I mean, I don't know how to come up with that money.
And we're
we
continuing.
just can't save for, we seem to be able to save for everything but the grader. Every time I look at the capital equipment schedule, it just makes me want to cry. Because I'm like, that's a nut I can't crack. And if you hadn't been saving enough, and then no one could have predicted COVID and the jump in equipment prices, I don't know about you, but I don't see it coming down. Do you, Mike?
No.
Yeah.
We all have to.
Yeah, people are paying.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so we did get a loader for the budget that we had, which was great.
And also, this will be the 4th budget in a row that we've had to carry ERAF money.
Yeah,
And so ERAF is our percentage of flood damage, so we've been anywhere from 40 to
Oh, God.
70 some odd thousand
Yeah.
dollars, which, again, that's 2 to 3 cents.
Yeah.
Just in our budget based upon paying off our flood debt.
And this is
which
saying over 2 years.
we really don't have a whole lot of control on other than we have to pay our 12.5%
Right.
of whatever type of work that we have.
And this is, I split it over 2 years, because at this point,
Yeah, we have it in one more year.
I'm
so.
guesstimating that the Sugar Hill culvert will come in at $1 million. And, because what can you get for $500,000 anymore, Yeah, and then, so that's my guess, but, and then, of course, we're building the $1.2 million to Pinello's. That bridge is, so that'll still be standing, but, so we have to pay our ERAF, so it's 12.5% on that, and then, so that's how I calculate the number.
Do we have a drawing for the new garage yet?
I haven't done anything with the new garage yet. I'd had a conversation with someone about what was cheaper at the time. Would we be better off going with a metal building or stick built? And at this point, they're saying, someone told me metal, that's a resident, or that's a commercial.
I was just concerned, I drove up by there the other day, and we got equipment scattered all over the door there.
Well, and some of it's ours, some of it's Hebert's, and,
That
But
little
yeah.
truck, that grader and the loader and
Yeah.
the one-ton truck are ours.
yeah, I'm sure, yeah. So it's definitely, I mean, I kind of like to see the new grand list to see where we're at and see what's gonna come in, but that's gonna be a bond vote. And let's see, what are the interest rates gonna do right now versus in a year or so from now? So we'll be trying to, like, if you think about, if you're paying, 3% versus 5%, it's a big deal over a term of 30 years, how much money you're spending in interest. So, I don't know. My crystal ball's a little rusty, but yeah, you're right. We got to do something for sure.
I mean, one thing, not to say we want to wait this long, but
What did Hebert say about paying Denise?
He was going to talk to her. I have a meeting with them tomorrow. 8:30 they want, I'm like, do you realize it's going to snow? So we're going to do a walk up Sand Hill at 8:30 tomorrow morning. I don't know what he thinks we're going to see, but, so we have meetings tomorrow from like 8:30
With
to
Denise?
probably 11.
Denise will be there?
No, but I told her, she saw, I sent her the email so she knows the conversation. So I'll have a conversation with Jimmy tomorrow and find out what his plan is.
Bring your raincoat.
Yeah, no doubt. It'll be good
I mean,
times.
one thing I would say that, talking about the Public Works building
What page are you on?
is we do have, the town hall, the town hall's note
Yep.
matures here in 2028, so
Yep.
that's kind of a good opportunity that we could,
Yep.
one loan
Yeah.
is paid off and we could move forward with the bond and,
That's a good
I
point,
would,
yeah.
I would think that, those numbers wouldn't be too far different.
What page are you on?
It's the last one, so
10,
long-term
page
debt.
10.
10 and 10.
Yeah, because the debt financing is 2000.
So I think there's, you know, I think that's probably definitely something that the board needs to put on their radar and start working hard on is, you know, getting, it's a long process because I've been on the board there at the school for the bond vote and expansion, and, you know, it was a year and a half worth of just, like, the process is crazy.
And it's just the permitting. I mean,
you
the
know,
good thing for us is we know
So-
exactly what size, we know exactly where it's gonna go, we know exactly what's gonna go, because it can't go anywhere outside of that footprint. So that's the good news. The bad news is, you know, how fast can they turn it around? What are we gonna do in the meantime? Where can we stage? So there's like a few things
But
to
it
think
might be
about.
nice
But
to-
we could do the architecture.
Might be nice to get
Draw
down to a,
bids for
I was gonna-
stick and metal and get 2 bids.
I have I do have RFPs from a couple of towns, and I know Brookfield was just doing one, and I was gonna get a hold of the contractor up there and and talk to Brookfield, see what they did. I know it was kind of a hodgepodge of stuff. I wanna see what they ended up coming up with. I saw their RFP, but it was, we'd want more than that.
I still like the Chelsea one.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys have seen the one that they built in Chelsea, like,
Down over the bank there?
it's like $1 million.
when did they build that? Like
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere around that. That was a pretty nice structure and simple, you know, but nice.
Well, that's what ours is gonna be.
I think everything you got to start with $1 million. You know, and then it goes up from there. Whatever bells and whistles you want.
It's true, it's true. I
think you're just kind of stuck in that.
and you see it with the, you know, with
Well,
the floods.
you're
and
also stuck with the state of Vermont has come up with codes that now have to be applied.
Well, now just to throw away the old building is a chunk.
Well, those are some of the challenges we're going to have there. Is I'm sure there are things that will have to be remediated there to be able to build something there. You know.
Well, let's just say.
Let's just say.
You are staying
So-
within that footprint, clearly, because you cannot vary from that footprint. I'm telling you, there's reasons.
So, you know, there'll be some challenges there, no doubt. But that's a good opportunity. And I mean, 2028 is not very far away.
It is not.
And
It's time to work on it.
if we at least had it down to the point of
Get ready.
it's
Yeah.
ready.
Well, it's gonna
We
be-
could get bond information.
Yeah, but you're also going to have to think about the fact that we'll have to look and see how much is in the capital building fund, because we did get denied the grant for this building and for the town office, and I still have a fuel tank under that garage, we use that term loosely, at the town office that I need to pull. So I'll have to look at that to see how much money we would have for engineering, or at least not full engineering, but maybe could get us to a bond vote, whether it's 40% design or, I mean, this isn't rocket science, folks. We know how much space we have, we know exactly how big the building is, and know where everything is, but, and of
But
course,
that would
we're
put us, I
looking
mean,
at
if we
that
were
fuel
on
tank.
target for this 2028 mature one, that, I mean, you would be building 2027.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, that's not far away.
Yeah, and so
So-
it's something to think about, for sure.
I would
So-
definitely try to get that worked out.
Well, we will do that. All right, so that's it, and there's nothing else for the town manager's report, because it was really just budget related.
And we'll continue.
Still waving.
Yes, Ally?
Thank you. I just want to make a comment that I understand about the pool. I can see why the pool wouldn't be open, because definitely without a pool director, I think that is really a good option to have it closed, because I'm concerned about safety and good programs at the pool. So I can see that. But I just want to comment that the committee will push for the 10,000 for the improvement fund. We'll be still pushing for that. So just want to give you that comment.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay, select board, get the minutes.
So, let's see, did you have anything left in yours? No, you're good.
We have to do
Select board meeting minutes from the 25th. Any changes or good to approve as written? Paul, did you find anything?
No, they're good.
Motion to approve.
Motion to, second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
So you had some minutes in here. Well, you saw the appointment letters that I sent to Corey and Paul. There was planning commission minutes and, oh, what else is in here? Oh, rec committee minutes are in here.
Yep.
I think that was it.
All right. Well, is there any other business to come before the board?
Just that we're gonna have to do an executive session.
Yeah, we will have an executive session this evening, so.
So that's kind of this is a two-part question, which is with the select board, we always end up talking about this. So to go into executive session, you obviously have limited reasons, limited purposes for good reason. And one of them is, it's this funky thing where you have a conversation so that premature public knowledge regarding an issue, you have to decide in open session whether or not it actually qualifies for executive session. So that it was recently being disclosed to the select board in executive session that we have some probable pending civil litigation which the town may be a party to, that it's possible we're going to be a party to that, then premature public knowledge would leave the town at a disadvantage if they disclose their options and we discuss legal advice in open session. So it's really difficult to say much more than that, but that's the conversation. Obviously, because you're in executive session, you all understand what it's about. So it's just one of those funky two-part things that so there has to be two motions. One is that you believe that premature public knowledge, and then the second is to go into executive session. It's just a funky thing we only do maybe once a year. So it bars a little discussion so people understand what we're doing.
Okay. So just need a motion?
Yeah.
Make a motion to find premature public knowledge regarding the above issue will leave Bethel at a substantial disadvantage.
Second.
Do you need both motions?
Yep.
And then I motion to go into executive session.
To discuss possible pending civil litigation.
Correct.
Okay, so you moved it?
Yeah.
You seconded it? Okay.
No, I moved it.
All in favor?
Need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. And I quoted the statute, obviously, in here, so you can see that'll be part of the motion.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for attending this evening.